The Cowboys won't forget. We keep talking about it too, and maybe it really does serve as motivation for this upcoming season. Welcome to NFL Live. Tim Hasselbeck, Herm Edwards, Jeff Darlington with you for the hour. We have an interview with Devonte Adams coming your way that you don't want to miss. Hear what he says about the quarterbacks there in Las Vegas. But first, let's get to the Cowboys quarterback, Dak Prescott. He was seen in a walking boot, as you see there, on his vacation in Cabo. The poor man can't even vacation. We're taking pictures of him. Plenty of questions surrounding his health after this, but the Cowboys have continued to downplay it. Here's Dak himself on the reason for the boot.
The same ankle, right, that I snapped and had a nasty surgery on 4 years ago. So, yeah, a couple of hard days of training, and you get a little sore and you're going on a fishing trip and you want to protect it and make sure that things don't get worse. So, literally, it's absolutely nothing. That's why I said people are reaching, trying to make things that they aren't. I'm getting older, have to take care of my body, have to be smart. And if I can take precautions and lessen something by putting on a boot, I'm going to do it. And so, sorry that it caused such a whirlwind.
I mean, Tim, Dak doesn't seem too concerned about the walking boot, but are you concerned that he needed a walking boot to prevent further injury on his surgically repaired ankle on his fishing trip?
I mean, it might get slippery on the boat, Laura. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I actually don't think it's that big of a deal if he's out of the boot and if they expect him to be a full participant. He is right. Like, there is a history with that ankle. Oftentimes guys need to get things cleaned up because of the wear and tear of a season on something that's been surgically repaired. So look, I don't think it's an issue. Now we see him in a boot weeks, 2, 3, 4, that type of thing. I think there's cause for concern, but I actually don't this time of year. And I almost would even say, too, just like listening to Dak talk, he doesn't sound like a guy that's real concerned about how the ankle would affect him.
I agree. When you hear him say it himself, Tim, it makes it kind of like, eh. I just had a fishing accident the other day, too, so I do agree. You got to take all the precautions you can. All right, Dak is one of the players that are awaiting new contracts in Dallas, along with star wide receiver CeeDee Lamb. Look at this. Lamb is hosting his youth football camp today. Tweeted this warning to reporters yesterday, quote, "I'm not speaking about any contract negotiations. If that's your questions, you'll get zero answers. It's about the kids." So since we can't ask CD about contracts, we'll ask our friend and insider Jeff Darlington. What more can you tell us about the contract decisions there in Dallas, Jeff?
There is no better excuse than just saying it's about the kids, by the way. You can't say anything back to that. It's for the kids. Look, when it comes to CeeDee Lamb, the Dallas Cowboys have definitely behind the scenes made him the priority. Now, whether or not that means that his deal will get done first when we talk about the big three of Dak Prescott and Micah Parsons in addition to Lamb remains to be seen. The question here, of course, is what more do the Cowboys need to get this deal done? We've already seen Justin Jefferson get his deal done. Perhaps Jamar Chase can get his deal done and maybe give the answers that the Cowboys need. The question then becomes, are they willing to pay that much? Are they willing to go up to that $35 million number for CeeDee Lamb? Big question still ahead for CeeDee Lamb, but I can at least tell you that these negotiations are ongoing and that CeeDee Lamb is a priority.
Yeah, I can see Jerry wanting to get this done. I mean, he's one of the staples of this offense and one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League. When you think about CD, his ability to catch and run, obviously 135 catches, almost 2,000 yards in reception. So he's a big player for them. But CeeDee Lamb, he has the same problem of all the Cowboys. These guys got to show up in big contests, and we know what that means. That's the playoffs. That has not been the case for this whole football team as of late.
And I think when you look at it too, Coach, you're right, and they do, but they're also going to get paid. And I think that, Dallas has had a little bit of a history of probably waiting too long. It's certainly been the case, when looking at the Dak Prescott situation. And so I think the big thing if you're Dallas is, look, you want to get it done. You don't want, a number one wide receiver completely unhappy, because just look at what happens. Like, look at the Tennessee Titans. They didn't want to do a deal with a number one wide receiver. They moved him to Philadelphia, and now it's affected their passing game for years. When you have a true number one, a guy that is a true number one receiver that can catch over 100 balls a year, that guy that scores touchdowns, like ultimately it's hard to let those guys leave your building. I think ultimately they should learn by some of the mistakes they've made in terms of how they've handled the Dak Prescott situation.
Yeah, it does seem like they could be aware of some of the mistakes. Oh, go ahead, Herm. What'd you have?
Well, Laura, here's the deal with the Dallas Cowboys. Historically, and I'm aging myself now. I didn't play against this one guy, but Bob Hayes. All right, think about Bob Hayes. Then it was Drew Pearson. Then it was Tony Hill. Right? It's been Dez Bryant. I mean, it continued. They've always had excellent receivers.
Yeah.
That's the history of the Dallas Cowboys. So they get that part of it. Now they got to get the guy signed.
Right, and if you look across the league, too, and the way that receiver market continues to explode, it makes it even that much more important. Guys, let's get to the Colts, and specifically their quarterback, Anthony Richardson, who's coming off a rookie season that saw some flashes of potential, followed by a season-ending injury. Now, his teammates certainly saw those moments of greatness. You see him out there at camp, too. Looks really good, looks really healthy. Colts Pro Bowl guard Quentin Nelson had this to say about Anthony Richardson on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast. Quote, he was electric when he was in there, and he's an absolute freak. He's weighing in after practice at like 250 pounds. He's ginormous. That's a word. He can launch the ball, and he can be accurate with it, too. The plays that he can make, like some of the ones that you've seen the flashes of, it's like, oh, my goodness, this guy's special. I mean, I think that's why the Colts drafted him where they did, Jeff. It was even a small sample size. But what more can you tell us about the Colts' plan for Richardson once training camp begins?
Well, it is expected to be full go for Anthony Richardson. Throughout this offseason, in fact, Richardson felt like he could go without limitations, but the team was trying to be as cautious as possible with that surgically repaired shoulder. And you see that date there, October 24th. They did have a good bit of time toward the end of that season to start that rehab process. They feel like they got a good jump start on it going into the offseason. So Richardson should be ready to go. You see him here going through drills during OTAs. He should be ready to go for training camp as well.
He's kind of been chomping at the bit, too, and they're like, no, slow down a little bit. We need you to be okay for the season. Tim, what do you need to see from Richardson to know that the Colts can compete for the playoffs this year?
Well, he's got to stay healthy. That's the first thing. But I think the other thing is, he's got to show the growth from a year ago. And I think it's really interesting. I think in some ways you still have to treat him like a rookie. Like I had two Gators on the show. Like this guy didn't play a whole lot of football at Florida. And then his rookie season gets cut really short because of that play right there. So I think that, when you look at the amount of football that he's actually played in the last 3 years, it's not a lot. And it's hard to be good at the toughest position in sports when you haven't done it a lot. And so I think it's interesting. I think they want to probably be careful with him because he's coming off of the shoulder injury, not, overwork him and have any setbacks and any of that type of stuff. But at the same time, like he needs the work. Now, I think they should be more encouraged, heading into this season than they were last season based on basically what Quentin Nelson was saying in terms of what he did a year ago type of athlete he is. But I think there's still a lot of growth that needs to happen with him.
Yeah, Tim makes some great points in the fact that this guy's a quarterback. And when you have a young guy like this, his problem is he has no time on task. He hasn't played enough football yet, even in college. And he only played 4 games last year. So this is one of those deals with a head coach going into the preseason. He calls the offensive linemen in, the starting guys, all those veterans that want to wear their baseball hat and sit on the sideline and not get involved in the preseason. You're going to tell those guys you're going to be involved in the preseason. This guy's going to have to play at least 2 halves of football games in the preseason. I've got to get him live reps, and I've got to protect him. So the starting offensive line, those starting 7 guys are going to play a lot of preseason reps. And if you're one of them linemen, you're kind of encouraged because you want to hear this from the head coach. This young man needs to play football. This is not what we call as we're going to talk about football. No, you actually got to go get on the grass and go play.
Yeah, and to that point, the lack of experience that you guys are telling us about. Of the Colts' first 5 games last season, Richardson only started and finished one of them. We'll see what he has up his sleeve coming up this year. We're just getting started on NFL Live. Star receiver Devonte Adams joining the show before tomorrow's debut of the Netflix series featuring some of the top pass catchers in the league. Stay tuned to see Adams. He's going to go behind the scenes with his involvement in the show.
He's pulling a U-turn. He's agreeing to terms with the Broncos.
Help is on the way. Help is on the way.
Throws it down the field. It's caught at the 10. And this game is over. The Cowboys win it.
He is decked. Down he goes. The ball